27th parallel on America's haunted highway. It's Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pixelated Paranormal. This is episode 326. I, of course, am Sean, and man, I had a day of days today, man. We drove 3 hours to Kansas City to the KC Crypticon. I got to meet Mr. Alan Troutman, the gentleman who played the Tar Man in Return of the Living Dead. Ran into a couple of friends, Dave and Allie. Shayla and I got a really nice lunch for our anniversary and drove back to Wichita in time to kill a pepperoni pizza and jump on to record the show. And with me, as always, is Preston. Preston, buddy, how are you?
What's up, all you cool ghosts and goblins, you crocodoons and crocodingos, you skeletors and skelettes and witchers and witches, whatever the fuck else you want to be. I'm alright, you know. I spent all day on the fucking hot garage, which was like a German-made sauna, making pens. Probably, could have died.
Wow, that's a German-made sauna.
Oh,
yikes!
No.
Fuck. So with that being said, guys, I ought to drop a disclaimer on this episode. Nothing disrespectful, nothing crazy, nothing jaw-dropping, but we do need to say on this episode we are in no way, shape, or form. We're not making fun of the queens of England, both recent and farther back. We're not making fun of any American pop musicians and their untimely demises or drug abuse. So let's just drop that off at the top here, and
but
then we'll get into it.
Might be making fun of just English people in general for being duped all those years, because you guys are a bunch of fucking idiots if you didn't see that one coming.
So your team.
Oh, cut out
boy.
there. What? What'd
Good
you say?
stuff.
I'm team what?
Well, this is episode. Yeah, you did too, man. I team tinfoil.
Oh yeah, I'm total team.
You buy this one? You think this one's?
Dude, I do buy this one. After just looking at the photos, and then just thinking about the story.
Mm-hmm.
One, I could see the king being that much of a fucking dipshit that he had no idea what was going on anyways. And then two, I mean, English women, pretty stout people. So, and that comment will make sense.
I don't know what the fuck that means.
I'm just saying.
I don't think that means any sense. You just generalize an entire group of women.
Very long,
Oh, Jesus. You've never watched Doctor Who Season 9 with Rose, have you? I'll change your tune real quick. That's a drop in the bucket, man.
Yeah.
Well, I should start over. With me, as always, is my sex host, Preston, who has a bias against everybody from Europe, apparently, with a keen interest in the UK. Fucking asshole. Damn. What's up, Lazarus? Good to see you in there, buddy.
Fuck Lexington, Kentucky.
Damn. You are just a bag of dicks. This is Conspiracy Files number 2, and on this episode we'll be discussing Queen Elizabeth I and the Bisley Boy. The story is one of my absolute favorites. When it comes to conspiracies, I think next to the moon landing, this one might be my number 2. Super stoked about this one. But first, a shit ton of news. So from a story that took place back in the late fall of 2023 comes an update about the 71-year-old woman who became the first person in recorded Californian history to be killed by a black bear. Following an investigation and interviews with people who knew her, we now know that the black bear in question had actually been hanging around and possibly even stalking the woman that was killed back in November 2023. Wildlife experts are fairly baffled by the case of Miss Patrice Miller. As the Chronicle reports, The 71-year-old woman lived by herself in a rental home in the tiny Sierra Nevada town of Downeyville. Sheriff's deputies arrived at Miller's home for a welfare check back in November of last year, and apparently they discovered a gruesome scene involving bloody bear prints and the woman's mangled, mauled body, which was also partly eaten and had been dragged through the house. And they believe the woman had died first, potentially, and then a bear must have broken into the house afterwards due to the smell of the decomposing body. Subsequent autopsies, however, which weren't publicly known until this month, found that the bear had indeed killed Miller in her bedroom. Investigators believe the bear entered the home through a kitchen window. It appeared the bear had probably been there for several days and had been feeding on the remains throughout. The bear then looted what it could find in the home and left a pile of bear shit right on the front porch. "We're in new territory," said Captain Patrick of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's Law Enforcement Division. That's right, folks. As it turns out, Miller was actually familiar with the bear several months before it killed her. She even had nicknamed it Big Bastard, reporting several times to have physically had to hit the bear, once telling people she believed it was purposefully stalking her in her home. A neighbor said every time I saw her, something would be brought up about the bear trying to get into the house. At first it was like, oh, this pesky bear, but then she seemed truly terrified. The chilling story led to a standoff between the sheriff's officer and the Department of Fish and Wildlife about euthanizing the bear, which they thought they had caught, and it had become trapped on another homeowner's property. Ultimately, the bear believed to have killed Miller was euthanized. The problem here is they don't want every single black bear to be euthanized out of fear of attacking human beings, this being again the first documented case of a black bear killing a human in California. The primary concern is public safety and also visitors who come into the communities. Fuck's sake, I can't imagine, dude. That's got to be terrifying.
First of all, I feel like this could have been on an episode of Bad Roommates, where like it's on Netflix where they have like
roommates. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, it's like all these like crime murder documentaries that has to do with like people getting like shitty roommates that create murder. So this could be on there. Secondly, just don't let the fucking bear in your house.
Okay.
Like you ran in the bedroom.
But that was the problem. She didn't let it in the house, dude.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
It got through the kitchen window and it killed her in her bedroom. Like, I don't know, sleep with the fucking doors closed, maybe lock your bedroom door. I mean, there's all these things. You can prevent forest fires is what I'm trying to say. Or all these little steps that you could have done that you didn't do, and that's why you got eaten by a bear.
So just like the bear that got trapped on somebody else's property, I'm glad you walked into that. So she actually had put bars on the windows of the house and even reinforced the front and back door. This thing somehow managed to get through the enforcements and made it into the kitchen. But beyond all that, it's just crazy to me that, like, I don't know the behaviors of bears. Our friend Aaron... That's the deterrent. Yeah. Our friend Aaron or Patty could probably tell us more about it, but like, I didn't know of them being like a stalking animal. I thought they were kind of like just kept to themselves and shit. But no, she said on several occasions it would be stalking her around the property, trying to find ways to get into the house. And I know, like, we're talking about humans being in the natural environment of a wild animal, building the house there or not. So I don't know. That's pretty fucking bonkers anyway. And there was another story that I couldn't find more details on, but recently there was a woman whose car died in the middle of a wooded area on the highway, and a fucking bear broke into the car and killed her. It wasn't a black bear, but still a fucking bear. So,
and this is why I'm not going to Alaska next week with my wife.
What? Insurance money. Cha-ching. She'll be fine, but polar bears are fucking scary too, though.
Yeah, all bears are assholes. Fuck them.
How about this segue? Remember how we talked about Pablo Escobar's hippos several episodes ago?
Also assholes, but yes.
And Yeah, hippos are animals, so we go from bears to hippos to Pablo Escobar. Here we are, perfect segue. After years of searching, one of Pablo Escobar's famed drug smuggling submarines may have been discovered. Former CIA agents Doug Laux and Ben Smith reportedly located a submarine off the coast of Colombia. The exact location hasn't been disclosed because, of course, we're talking about potentially leading somebody to the $50 billion fortune that may have sunk off the edge of the fucking ocean when Pablo was, offed. Escobar used submarines and is known to have had at least one of his own to transport cocaine from Colombia to Puerto Rico, where it would have been carried to Miami by speedboat. Rumors that his still missing $50 billion fortune could be stashed in one of these narco submarines have swirled around for years, making this discovery all the more valuable. In a clip, divers are seen scouring the seabed looking for clues, and one diver located a box and a few scraps of metal, though so far, no cash. But according to the CIA agents who have spoken with former employees of Escobar's, the submarine used by the kingpin could carry roughly 2,000 kilos of cocaine. And in the 80s, submarines were an easy way to avoid being spotted by law enforcement. Since Pablo's demise, people across Colombia and the U.S. have been searching for the rumored $50 billion fortune that Escobar reportedly stashed throughout his homeland before his death. The two believe that if anyone could find the cash, they could find it. My job, said Laux, in the agency is finding people, finding bad guys. So you have to kind of have that same scenario here. If it's anything that somebody wants to keep a secret and they keep it in the dark, that's kind of where Ben and I thrive in getting in there and shining some light on it. Anyway, the sub was originally located after Laux and Smith found a place where the sub would regularly surface and be filled with drugs. After confirming locations with former employees, they sent divers down and located a sunken sub. Though the sub is in its original sunken location, the agents believe it was only recently uncovered after a large storm shifted the sand on the seabed. So this shit could be somebody's fucking payday. Presto, if you could flash up the first photo there for me, pal. This thing's creepy as shit. It kind of looks like a smiling pile of booger snot in a petri dish. If humanoid robots make you queasy, would it help if they had fleshy faces that could smile at you? The uncanny feat is the result of a new tech... No, not so much. Well, the uncanny feat is a result of new technology using engineered living skin tissue and human-like ligaments to give robots a more natural smile. That's right, folks, this creepy-ass picture is a result of several different ligaments and skin tissue being hoisted and pulled and poked by different rods inside this metal petri dish, trying to mimic whether or not a glob of skin goo could actually smile.
God,
In this study, we managed to...
like a sex toy company getting hold of this, making like a fleshlight.
Yeah.
Like, oof.
Ew.
Yeah.
I just picture the little bucket of slime you'd get from like Ninja Turtles and Toxic Avengers when you were little. Just, put your pud inside of that. Ugh. Mm-hmm. Well, in the study, they managed to replicate human appearance to some extent by creating a face with the same surface material and structure as humans. In the process, they identified new challenges such as the necessity for surface wrinkles and a thicker epidermis to achieve more human-like appearances. The approach promises to make robots more lifelike, and in the future, researchers say similar techniques could also be used on humans in the cosmetics and plastic surgery industries. To overlay and connect the lab-produced skin on a robotic skeleton, a layer of collagen gel consisting of cultured human dermal fibroblasts, a type of connective tissue cell, is binded to an innovative system of tiny V-shaped perforations on the surface, letting the skin move with the underlying structure without tearing or peeling. The work of muscles, creating a smile and other motions, is done by actuators. It's really fucking terrifying. But that's okay, because basically it's similar to the lab-grown meat and 3D printed lab-grown meat substitutes that the people have been working on in other fucking laboratories. And get this, Preston, if it's not creepy enough, this shit also will be self-healing. So if it gets cut, those what the fuck did we just call them? Hold on a second here. The collagen could heal itself. So if you walk up and punch one of these new T1000s in the face, it could just basically just heal right up in front of you. Anyway, this all on a quest to make biomedic robots even more realistic with thicker skin. For now, robots using the technology cannot feel their own faces, so putting it in a category pioneered blah blah blah, never mind, scratch that, that's just stupid. They're trying to make a joke about the weekend. Creepy shit. That looks more like a Fleshlight meets Thomas the Tank, and it's fucking creepy. All right, buddy, next photo.
I'm the little engine that can hawk too.
Gross. Next photo, not nearly as creepy. What do you have there, folks? Well, it's a white, unidentified flying object, or UAP. This comes from today, actually. When Shayla and I were in Kansas City, I jumped on and saw a news story. This comes from Oberlin in Kansas. As of earlier today, questions are being circled around about a flying object in the skies over northwest Kansas. It appears to be some type of balloon. Some experts say it looks eerily similar to the Chinese spy balloons that flew over the U.S. last year. The National UFO Center says it's had several reports about the object that a viewer says was floating near Oberlin. But what exactly is it? Well, folks, as of right now, it's a mystery. It looked like a little weather balloon type thing at first, but the more we watched it, it didn't move. It maintained the same exact spot, said Oberlin resident Nathan Kelly. He spotted it about noon back on Wednesday. It looks like a floating pearl. It looks like a pearl when you zoom in on it. I don't know what it is. It's got to be. I don't want to speculate for a lack of better term, though. The Decatur County Sheriff's Office looked at the pictures and sent a statement saying, "That's interesting, all right. We haven't received any calls about it, though." Well, apparently they also contacted the National Weather Service in Dodge City to see if they had any other weather balloons in the area. A spokesperson says it's a balloon popped by the air. The Federal Aviation Administration also had no answers, referring us to the National UFO Reporting Center. A fellow reported a spherical object, white in color, apparently with a long, luminous tail behind it, but that's about all we know. This one has us scratching our heads. We don't know what it is. It's reminiscent of that Chinese spy balloon, a helium-filled balloon that apparently flew across our nation last year. If anybody has any idea what the hell this thing is, call 206-722-3000 or submit a written report and post online. Apparently the same thing was seen over Nebraska last week, but I don't know what the fuck it is.
Dude, I'm sure somebody's got like a high-powered like rifle, military rifle with a scope on it. Just fucking shoot it next time and float out of the sky.
Military rifle. Oh, fuck, man.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, that's... Lazarus, I think I just saw your comment here about the big bear in the airport in Alaska. They were talking about in Fairbanks instituting these metal dog robots to try to troll around the area and scare off bears and foxes. So, interesting shit, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get into the old meat and taters, as Preston calls it. Presto, if you could throw up the third photo there for me of Miss Queen Elizabeth I. Elizabeth I is remembered for many things: her long reign, the defeat of the Spanish Armada, and her unflinching determination. However, is her eternal legacy as the Virgin Queen actually a myth? Elizabeth's reign was one of the most celebrated in British history, spanning 45 years, from 1558 to 1603. She was known as the Virgin Queen, but Elizabeth never had any kids of her own or even married, making the nickname stick and be pretty much true. But could her apparent celibacy be connected to something more interesting? Presto, move your phone away from your mic, would you, buddy boy? My
Okay.
bad, baby. I got a little crinkle. Yeah. Famously, despite countless proposals and opportunities to marry an array of suitable bachelors, Elizabeth I resisted, and her line died with her. I have already joined myself in marriage to a husband, namely the Kingdom of England, she claimed. But again, was this true, or was it due to something far more strange? Elizabeth's vow of abstinence was a very unusual one for her time, and there were those who believed that the real reason was far more biological. That's right, boys and girls. Elizabeth was a man, baby! And because no conspiracy theory could be complete without several other interesting characters, folks, the bizarre theory that the Virgin Queen was actually the Virgin King was first put into print by none other than Bram Stoker. That's right, everybody, Mr. Dracula himself. But there's no doubt that some of Elizabeth's contemporaries had similar ideas way before the Dracula dude put the words into print. Anyway, as mentioned just a second ago, known for writing gothic horror novels such as Dracula, Bram Stoker first uncovered this bizarre theory when he visited the village of Bisley in the Cotswolds. There he discovered a peculiar village tradition during the annual May Day celebrations, where a highly celebrated figure known as the May Queen was actually a boy dressed in Elizabethan clothing instead of a girl. Odd? We think yeah. Curious to know more about the strange tradition, Stoker did some digging and supposedly uncovered a potentially well-hidden legend and immortalized it in his 1910 book titled Famous Impostors. And thus we have the infamous conspiracy theory, fueled by, or dare I say, stoked by Bram Stoker. This conspiracy theory is known as Queen Elizabeth I and the Bisley Boy. So the story goes that at some point in her childhood, likely around, 1543 or 1544, right around the age of 9 or 10, Princess Elizabeth, it was back then, was taken to Bisley by her two guardians, Thomas Parry and Lady Cat Ashley, to escape a deadly outbreak of the bubonic plague that was ravaging London. It was there that they were staying at an old hunting lodge in the little village deep in the Gloucestershire countryside, known as the Overcourt House, a building still present in Bisley today. The belief was that by leaving the metropolis of London, where people were dying left and right, it would ensure that she herself wouldn't succumb to the deadly disease. But then after a short time passed, King Henry... Man, hold on. But then, after a short time passed, King Henry arranged to come and see his daughter in her countryside retreat. But suddenly, just before he was expected to arrive, his adolescent daughter, the young Elizabeth, mysteriously fell ill.
Oops.
And she died of the plague anyway.
Oops.
That's right,
What do
folks.
we do?
As much as try as they might, young Elizabeth died in a manor house in the Cotswold village of Bisley in Gloucestershire. Now, knowing how fearsome King Henry's reputation was and not wishing to feel the brunt of his royal anger and potentially lose both their heads, the governess and Elizabeth's other concocted a plan, as crazy it might... Man, I was doing so great. Knowing how fearsome King Henry's reputation was, and not wishing to feel the brunt of his royal anger and potentially lose both their heads, the governess and Elizabeth's other handler concocted a plan, and as crazy as it might sound, if it worked, would save both their asses. So, they hid the dead child's royal body and rushed into the town to find another girl of equal stature to try to pass off as the young princess. Unfortunately, though, for the panicked governess, there were no fair-skinned... Jesus fucking H, man. Unfortunately, though, for the panicked governess, there were no fair-skinned redhead female children of the appropriate age who even vaguely resembled the young, dead Elizabeth. So panic ensued. But then, just as she thought that all hope was lost, she remembered a playmate of the princess, a pretty young child who would pretty much be well passed off as Elizabeth herself. But there was one small problem. This dubious doppelganger was a boy. But with her back against the wall and no other options left, the governess searched the town, found the child in question, and quickly dressed him in Elizabeth's clothes just in the nick of time as King Henry arrived. And somehow the astonishing plan went off without a hitch, and everyone believed that this new impostor was in fact the real Elizabeth, the first daughter of Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII. They decided their best hope of protecting themselves at this point and their families was to teach the Bisley Boy from this point on how to be a princess, because it worked once, right? The king was completely duped and they got away with it. Well, apparently it continued to work, because luckily for the governess, Henry didn't actually visit his daughter all that often in Bisley, and because of this, she was known for being notoriously shy around her father. And besides, he was usually in a royal hurry and never really took that much time to really take her in. You know, probably just a quick one-armed hug, how you been, where's the turkey legs, and then he's back off to royal business. And so, after catching a glimpse of her, the king is satisfied and continues to go on his merry way each time he visits. And thus the body of the real Elizabeth Tudor was buried in a stone coffin in the manor grounds. And ironically, this deception worked so well, it continued indefinitely, so nobody in the know dared inform the king, and most aware of this swap were confined to tiny remote villages in the Cotswold Hills, and thus the truth was buried forever. Now Elizabeth's body, the real Elizabeth that is, was supposedly never moved from the stone coffin, and it was hidden in more than 300 years later. Elizabeth's body, the real Elizabeth that is, was supposedly never moved from the stone coffin that it was hidden in. And then, more than 300 years later, during building work, it was discovered. Reverend Thomas Kibble reportedly told his family that the body was found of that of a young girl in an Elizabethan dress. Realizing what he had discovered, he conveniently reburied her elsewhere, supposedly beginning a legend that intrigued Bram Stoker and created the peculiar May Day drag tradition. But Stoker wasn't messing around with the conspiracy, and he thoroughly was convinced that this was 100% true, and it's easy to see how he might have come to the conclusion, seeing as though Queen Elizabeth had many attributes and habits that were very unusual, supposedly, for women in her era. Not to mention her famous speech that she gave the troops of Tilbury before the Spanish Armada. There she said, "I know I have the body of a weak, feeble woman, but I have the heart and the stomach of a king, and of a king of England too, and think foul scorn of Parma or Spain, or any prince of Europe should dare to invade the borders of my realm, to which rather than any dishonor shall grow by me, I myself will take up arms, I myself will be your general, judge, and rewarder of every one of your virtues in the field." Pretty fucking riveting speech, right? So it's argued
had me on the seat of my pants. You know?
Yeah, it sure did, right? You were looking for anything to raise up and just, jab at the next person that walks in that fucking door. It was argued that such a rousing speech with such remarkable manly bearing could not possibly have come from the mouth of a woman. There was also the fact that she consistently wore wigs, perhaps to hide a receding hairline. She was also known to cake on makeup so thick on her face, as well as wear gigantic dresses with high lacy necklines. Some believe perfect for disguising the male form and even hiding the unsightly, nasty Adam's apple. Preston, next photo there, you can see that dress has a collar to end all collars. And also, shoulder pads to hide broad shoulders, perchance. So anyway, let's go deeper, because there's multiple rumors during Elizabeth's reign that she was unable to bear children. The Count de Feria, advisor to Philip II of Spain, wrote back in 1559, when Elizabeth was 25, If my spies do not lie, which I believe they do not, for a certain reason which they have recently given to me, I understand that she will not bear children. So is this the reason of the absence of a female reproductive organ? Stoker certainly believes so, and he also maintained that this was a secret that Elizabeth closely guarded her whole life. The courtier Sir Robert Thywald also wrote in 1549, I do verily believe that where there hath been some secret promise between my lady, Mistress Ashley, Elizabeth's governess, and the cofferer, Sir Thomas Parry, never to confess the death. Stoker wasn't the only one to compare Elizabeth to a man. Her tutor, Roger Ashcam, wrote back in 1550, the constitution of her mind is exempt from female weakness, and she is endued with a masculine power of application. Simply put, he thought she was far too clever to be a woman. So Elizabeth's refusal to see any other doctors. Hold on a second. Also, Elizabeth's refusal.
She looked like a man.
Why not?
She talked like a man. Therefore, she is a man.
Elizabeth's refusal to see any doctors, but her own doctors, would also be seen as suspicious. Even when she fell ill during house arrest at Woodstock, she refused to see anyone but her own physicians. This reluctance for others to examine her body continued throughout her entire life, and it was made very clear that there was also to be absolutely no post-mortem of her body after death. And then if we fast forward, upon the Queen's death, no autopsy was performed, and rather than a grand state funeral you expect for a monarch of a nation that so adored her, instead her remains were also put into the same coffin as her sister Mary I, also known as Bloody Mary, in Westminster Abbey, in a grave that to this day has never been breached or exhumed.
Okay, so why don't you just go crack the coffin lid? You have two skeletons. Okay, so forensic anthropology will tell you that one skeleton will have hip bones in the shape of a woman, and if there's another chick buried in there, then you'll have two hip bones of another woman. If you have the pelvis bone of a man, conspiracy theory solved, baby.
Well, who was the, forgive the term here, hermaphroditic pharaoh from back in Egypt? I always forget their names, but there were several cases in which case pharaohs, of course men, had very ladylike bodies, right? Like there's that one dude that had pretty curvaceous hips and some titties too.
King Tutankhamun had hips don't lie, but he also had like a cone head and like cerebral palsy because he was all like crippled up and everything. But I mean, still, you could tell that just by the skeletal structure, what is going on. You could easily debunk this conspiracy one way or another. So I just don't think England wants to let the cat out of the bag, or the rooster out of the bag, so to speak.
Yeah, the rooster. Very nice. Well, it might be that very rooster that pokes a few holes in the theory. Like most conspiracy theories, it falls apart when we look a little deeper at the facts. It does seem peculiar that even a father as distant as Henry wouldn't notice that his little girl was now a little boy, especially considering how obsessed he was about acquiring a boy of his own. That was his whole master plan, to have a boy to pass the throne down to, right? Well, although Elizabeth never married, she was romantically linked to several men, most notably Robert Dudley. Although she claimed never to have actually done the deed with him, which is believable considering she was constantly surrounded by watchful eyes day and night, it seems unlikely that none of her male favorites would have noticed that she might have been a he. Robert Dudley, one of her favorites, though the rest of the royal court did not share such fondness of him, had another, that's fucking stupid, another prospective suitor, Philip II, had heard rumors of her infertility and decided to find out the truth for himself by bribing her launders for details. That's right, everybody. Philip II was a dirty pervert. But, the laundress still came up with the goods and reported that the queen was a functioning normal woman, indicating that she was menstruating like any other lady. Satisfied by that, Philip believed she could indeed bear children to his heir, but unsuccessfully proposed to Elizabeth nonetheless. On another occasion, a panel of doctors inspected her during a marriage negotiation to ensure she could still bear children, and they confirmed she could. So either they were very ill-trained doctors or Elizabeth was in fact a female. But I like to tilt the tinfoil hat forward and say she just probably threatened all of them. If you say a fucking word, I will cut all your heads off and your family too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because Elizabeth I was pretty fucking powerful, dude. She was one bad ass. Anyway, perhaps what this most definitely hogwash conspiracy theory demonstrates instead is how limited the views towards were. Back in the 1800s, a woman's role was so defined that even the most powerful woman in the country, the Queen of England, couldn't defy it without people questioning her gender. So that's right. Dirty, dirty rumors spread just because she was a fucking phenom.
We discussed this in an art history class one time, and I find this fascinating that back in the day you would have master artists that they would stop producing work and their apprentices would handle
Watch
the
your phone.
painting. Huh?
I said watch your phone. It's doing that thing again.
Oh, it's like all the way in the corner. It's not even near the mic.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, it might be your Bluetooth. You got your earbuds in. That could be it. Sorry, my
I'll-
bad, baby.
I'll
Go
back
ahead.
I'll back up. Anyways, so so you'd have these master artists that actually wouldn't do anything. They would, have the apprentice do all the work. They would just come in the shop like once a day and be like, "Oh yeah." But a lot of times the apprentice were women, but that at the time it was basically like women couldn't be artists, and so like they could never get the credit for the work themselves. So if it was something that was really good, like the master would take all the credit for it, and they would go down in history as the person that painted it, but they never did. It was actually a chick, and they're just like, women can't paint.
Yeah.
I'm going to take all the
I mean, and
credit
that's
for it. Now get back in the
right.
studio and make me a sandwich and paint, woman.
Make me a sandwich and throw me a pot to put it in. There were cases of that with Da Vinci, with Michelangelo, with all those famous, Renaissance painters too, that apparently half their portfolios or more than half were actually done by, by those people.
Yeah.
Fucking wild, dude. I don't know. Well, let me open my doc back up here, shall I?
Shall you? You shall.
And since then, Queen Elizabeth I had no children. So with her death came the end of And then, since Queen Elizabeth I had no children, with her death came the end of the House of Tudor, the family that had ruled England since the late 1400s. And there lies the mystery of the Bisley Boy and Queen Elizabeth I. And at this point of the episode, I thought we could leave it where it is. I think this is a pretty grand conspiracy in its own right, and it could easily be plenty for this show. But as I kept going down the royal rabbit hole, and found something else worth chatting about, exit Queen Elizabeth I and enter Queen Elizabeth II. As a quick refresher, Queen Elizabeth II isn't directly descended from Queen Elizabeth I, but they are related. As a daughter of King Henry VIII, Queen Elizabeth I was the granddaughter of King Henry VII. Queen Elizabeth II is also related to King Henry VI because his daughter Margaret also married into the House of Stuart in Scotland. I hope you were taking notes. When Queen Elizabeth I died without an heir, Margaret's great-grandson James VI of Scotland became the new monarch, reigning as King James I of England. Just as the throne passed from the Tudors to the Stuarts, it then passed to the Hanovers. The Hanovers established the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. That house was renamed to the House of Windsor, to which Queen Elizabeth II belongs. Anyway, like I said, I want to take this conspiracy rabbit hole even farther, but I want to widen our focus from not just queens, but I want to add princes to the mix now, Preston. As the unfortunate death of Queen Elizabeth II brought her 70-year reign to an end, just like pretty much anything else these days, shortly after her passing on September 8, 2022, a steady flow of Queen memes and also damaging rumors began to spread across the interwebs as lightning speeds even spread the plague across London. And no, I'm not talking about how supposedly Queen Elizabeth II was a leader of an elite group of underground lizard people. Oh no, my friends. It was a different social media claim that caught my attention. So put on your tinfoil hats, dear listeners and viewers, because the United Kingdom's longest reigning monarch may have had the sinister connection to the death of one of America's most beloved and coveted musicians, the artist formerly known as Prince. The post in question was from an Instagram video that began by showing a screenshot of a Google search for Elizabeth's birthday, which for the uninformed was April 21st, 1926. Then the video cut to a screenshot of results for Prince's death, which just so happened to be April 21st, 2016, the Queen's 90th fucking birthday. That's right, folks.
I'll be right back. You continue.
You gotta leave, you son of a bitch. Anyway, that's right, folks. There's a large group of freethinkers out there who have a firm belief that in order to appease the late Queen Elizabeth II and our reptilian overlords, the artist formerly known as Prince was kidnapped and ultimately offered as a blood sacrifice. Now, apparently the Instagram post was flagged as part of Facebook's efforts to combat false news and misinformation on its new feed, and Instagram, of course, is owned by Facebook's parent company, Meta. So the video is continuously taken down just as quick as it's put up. Now, sadly, Prince, who was born Prince Rogers Nelson, did die at the age of 57 after being found unresponsive at his Paisley Park estate in Chanhassen, Minnesota. Minnesota health officials determined that Prince did die of an accidental fentanyl overdose after unknowingly taking counterfeit Vicodin laced with the highly potent synthetic opioid. Meanwhile, coincidentally across the Atlantic Ocean, Elizabeth was celebrating her 90th birthday in Windsor, where she was greeted by well-wishers. So while there is no real evidence to suggest the two events were related, the fact that the Queen's birthday was the same day as Prince's death does make a person stop and go, huh, doesn't it? No, I don't think it does, actually. I think that's all poppycock. But yeah, I found that little story when I was looking up strange and interesting facts about the Queen, and I thought it was worth, putting at the end as a punctuation to this episode. So I don't know where Preston ran off to. He just kind of bailed on me. He may have had to go potty, methinks. But yeah, I'd love to know, any of you guys watching live now on YouTube, what you guys think. Queen Elizabeth I, was she indeed a man? Or was she just simply misunderstood? Hey, what's up, man? How you doing, man? Hopefully you're doing well. And again, while we're waiting for Preston to get back, I do want to thank everybody for watching. Lazarus, Matt, everybody. It's good to see everybody. Everybody over on Kick and Rumble, thanks for tuning in. There you are, you handsome son of a bitch.
Sorry, I had to pee and go get a snack.
I figured as much. I told you, man, you got to have an empty 2-liter under your desk, mute the mic, and just fill her up.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have your earphones in while you're up there tinkling, or what do you think? Did Queen Elizabeth II sacrifice Prince to appease the reptilian overlords?
Fuck yeah, she did, dude. Prince was a fucking god on the guitar. She fucking hated him.
Yeah, he was, man. You hated him because you were, thwarted by his fucking guitar skills. If I could just get this guy out of the way, I could be a famous guitar player. Uh-huh. Good shit. Good shit all around. Cool. All right, buddy. Well, that's all I got, man. Queen Elizabeth I may have been a dude, and Queen Elizabeth II was a lizard who sacrificed Prince. thus concludes file number 2 of our conspiracy theories. It's conspiracy theory series. Jesus, man. It's been a long fucking day. Well, have you got anything on your corner lined up for episode 3 of Conspiracies? Been thinking about anything? Got anything lined up?
I don't know. Should we deep dive back into all the orphan children of the 1800s since we did Mud Flood?
We could. We could do a little research on that. I've also been writing a story about some stuff that has to do with the U.S.'s first trips to outer space. And I'm not talking about the moon landing because we talked about that one before. But there is some other interesting stuff and conspiracies about our time in the Great Space Race. So I've got some pretty fun stuff to throw in there about that.
Do you know anything about Operation Sea Spray?
That could be part of what I'm thinking of. I don't know what the name of it was, but
well, no,
I
Operation
think we
Sea
should...
Spray had nothing to do with space, but it was
interesting.
It was a medical experiment conducted by the government in the 60s.
Really? Was it? We'll have to look into that too, man.
Gave people super chlamydia on accident.
Oh, you were telling me about that, I think. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So, sea spray. Maybe we have to glove up and talk about that one too. Yeah. Are you eating on the fucking microphone, you son of a bitch?
Yep.
God damn it. It's like the first fucking month of recording. Preston, what are you doing? I'm eating a piece of cheese. Preston, what are you doing? I'm eating a popsicle. I love it. I love it. All right, man. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. If you're on social media, please follow us on Instagram. We are at PXL Paranormal. On Facebook, we are the Pixelated Paranormal Podcast. Preston, where can everybody watch us live?
You can watch us on
or not live afterwards.
Right. You can watch us on YouTube Live. You can watch us on Facebook Live. You can watch us on Kick Live. You can watch us on Twitch Live. You can watch us on Rumble Live. We have 32 subscribers and followers on Rumble, so if you're not already on Rumble, do us a favor, go over there, like and subscribe, create an account, help us grow Rumble, share with all your friends on YouTube. I think we're at 315 subscribers on the old YouTube, so we've gained a couple in the last monthish. So we could be doing better. I'm just saying. And look, folks, if you need a beard, if you want a beard, if you want to grow the best damn beard possible, if you're tired of everybody thinking you're a 17th century English queen because you got to wear like a long neck dress and you just want to have the best damn facial hair possible, do yourself a favor. Go over to BigDobsBeardBomb.com and use promo code PXLPARA for 20% off your order. And get yourself the most princely, kingish beer that you could possibly get with scents like bay rum, fresh citrus, mint, classic, sweet tobacco. And even if you're not a dude, you could be like Kathy Bates and be the bearded lady. You know what? It's cool. Chicks can have beards too. It should smell good. That's all I'm saying. So PXLPARA for 20% off your order. Get it all. Get it a Dobbs. Yeah, man.
Good call. What was she the bearded lady in? What show was that? American Horror Story?
American Horror Story. Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Fuck yeah. Before we jump off here, I do want to give a shout out to Brianna. She just jumped on as well. I always forget how to pronounce Brianna. I mean, the same. Is it the same? Potato, tomato. Anyway, what's up? Good to see you as well. Yeah. Potato chlamydia. You know how it is. But hello, anyway, thank you for jumping in and tuning in as well. If you're in the Wichita area, stop in to the the Paranormal Cafe. And also, if you see the food truck out and about, go by, say hi to the guys and gals over there at the Paranormal Egg Experience. And definitely, as always, stop in and see our dear friend Leslie and the rest of the gang at CD Trade Post, Pawnee, and Seneca. And until next time, I'm going to go probably chug the rest of this bad boy because clearly I need it. And I'm going to say cheers to the weird shit in the world and those of us that love to talk about it.
And stay spooky and stay on the paranormal highway.
The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Pixelated Paranormal is here to tell you tales of the fantastical, the strange, the unknown. Tales that will move you a little further down the paranormal highway. If you'd like to share your own listener story, we would love to hear it. Email us at pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. Again, that's pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.